Let me ask you a question that almost no one answers honestly the first time they hear it. You ready? How much of your stress comes from trying to keep up with someone else? Not from hunger, not from survival, not from true need, but from comparison. Welcome to Chasing the Wind. I'm Dan Holland, and we're looking at the 10 rules from Solomon for catching what lasts. And this is rule number 3. Solomon looked at the engine driving human ambition, and he wrote something brutally clear in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 4. He said, I saw that all labor and all achievement spring from man's envy of his neighbor. This too is meaningless. It's a chasing after the wind. Now, that's not a small observation. That's a diagnosis. He's saying much of what we call success isn't about purpose. It's about positioning. It's not about calling, as it turns out. It's often about comparison. And comparison is the treadmill that never stops. You can win a race and still feel behind. You can upgrade your life and still feel like you're lacking. You can achieve a goal and immediately move the finish line because envy has no completion point. Solomon calls it chasing the wind because no matter how fast you run, the wind is always ahead of you. And the tragedy is this: while you're chasing your neighbor's life, you're neglecting your own. Now, Jesus confronted this exact impulse in John chapter 21. See, after the resurrection, Peter looks at John and asks Jesus, Lord, what about him? See, he was curious to know what would happen to John. He was comparing his situation to John's. It's such a human question, but Jesus answers, in essence, that's not your assignment. You follow me. See, comparison distracts us from obedience. It always has, and it always will. The pressure to compete is so subtle. We don't wake up thinking, I want to envy someone today. No, it shows up in respectable clothes. It looks like ambition. It looks like drive. It looks like motivation, but underneath, it's a quiet fear. If I don't keep up, I'll be left behind. And Solomon says that fear is a trap. He contrasts envy with something radical in verse 6. He says, better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. In modern language, better a smaller life with peace than a bigger life with anxiety. Better alignment than applause. Better to be faithful than famous. Paul takes this even further in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 and 4. He says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others or love others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. See, that's the opposite of comparison culture. Comparison says, where do I rank with him or her or them? The gospel says, how can I serve him or her or them? See, comparison turns life into a scoreboard. Humility, well, that turns life into a mission. And the moment you step out of competition, something surprising happens. I think you're going to love this. You get your life back because envy is exhausting. You can't enjoy what you have while measuring what someone else has. You can't celebrate your calling while chasing theirs. You can't hear God clearly while you're scanning the room. That's why Romans 12:18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Peace and comparison don't coexist. They can't. One cancels the other. So let's make this practical. What does rule number 3 look like in real life right now? Well, first, name your comparison triggers. Is it social media? A coworker, a sibling, another family, another ministry, another church? I've heard it all. You can't fight what you won't identify. See, comparison thrives in vagueness. It weakens, however, when it's exposed. Scripture tells us to bring whatever is done in the darkness into the light so that it can be seen for what it truly is. All right, second, you can practice celebration instead of competition. Literally, when someone succeeds, say it out loud. That's good. I'm glad for him. I'm glad for her. I'm glad for them. Not because you feel it yet, but because obedience trains your emotions. See, celebration is a spiritual discipline. It simply reorients your heart away from scarcity and toward a mindset of gratitude. A third thing you could do, you could just re-anchor your calling. Ask this question every day. What is God asking of me today? Not what is he asking of them, not the culture, not the person ahead of you, but you. See, Jesus told Peter to follow him. That's the entire Christian life in one sentence. Follow Jesus. And here's the irony. When you stop competing, you become more effective. You become more present, focused, grounded, content. Solomon isn't arguing for laziness, not at all. He's not saying don't work. He's saying check your motive. Work driven by envy is exhausting and never ending, but work driven by calling is exhilarating. There's a difference between excellence and rivalry. Excellence says, I want to steward what God gave me. Rivalry says, I want what God gave them. See, one produces peace. The other produces constant dissatisfaction. And remember, a foolish person can agree with this, all of it, and still live enslaved to comparison. Agreement without action changes nothing, while the wise person practices. So right now, when comparison rises, and it will, interrupt it. Say, that's not my lane. That's not my assignment. That's not my race. And then ask, Jesus, what does following you look like right now? And that is how you will step off the treadmill. That is how you stop chasing the wind. Rule number 3 is not about lowering your ambition. It's about purifying it. Because when your ambition is aligned with God instead of your neighbor, you don't just run faster, you run free. And freedom is the beginning of real success.